Hey folks, it's Chris with the Human Project Podcast. This episode, Mark and I are going to talk about making friends as adults. It's something that we often don't think about, but my guess is many of us are not happy or satisfied with the level of friendships or the amount of friendships that we have. How do we go beyond the superficial? And what does this reveal about our responsibility in every day-to-day interaction we have with another human being? Take a listen to this episode. Let us know what you think. Hello, Mark, my friend.
Well, hello, Chris, my friend.
How's it going today?
It's a friendly kind of day. How are you?
How very Mr. Rogers of you. I think we've started a couple podcasts with something Mr. Rogers related.
Won't you be my neighbor?
Won't you be my neighbor? Yeah. So what I wanted to talk about today was friendship.
The way you say that, I feel like I'm in preschool.
Yeah.
Or
Friendship.
Friendship.
It's it is interesting you bring that up because like Sophia's just turned 2 and everything is my friends, my friends, my friends. And as adults, like it's very different. Like I feel like as a kid, like you view everybody as your friend.
Yeah.
And you rank your friends and you're my best friend or this person's my second best friend.
Right. Very important.
Or like take it back 15 years to MySpace, like where you had your friends ranked. Yeah.
Blast from the past, man.
Yeah, right. Derek, did you ever do MySpace? No? Okay. Man, I'm like right at the cutoff here. Wah, wah, wah.
Sorry, dude.
It's all right. Geosites.
GeoCities, man.
Zynga.
Yeah. All the rage.
GeoCities? I thought it was called Geosites. Oh, okay. Well, see, that was before my time, though.
I didn't use them either. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm hip and cool.
I wasn't alive before the internet.
I remember when you used 10 cans to talk to the neighbor.
Oh, my word. Wow.
So I'm not being very friendly right now.
It's not feeling like it. I'm not going to lie.
Oh. Anyways, going back to the difference between kids and friends and like this disposition growing up about friends, I feel like it's so different as adults with friends. Like what do we do to make friends as adults? How do we build friendships? How do we continue friendships? What does that look like?
Yeah. And even why is that important?
Yeah.
Like, what's the big deal? Which I think we can just lightly reference previous conversations about connection, right? We are made for connection.
Yep.
And I think in some ways you could, well, in some very real ways, look, connection, friendship is a type of connection.
Yeah.
And it is the pathway into deeper relationship and community with other people. So it's really important for us. It's what we were made for. We definitely need it as part of what goes on in our lives. So that's my view of why it's important for us to have friends, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting to think about the community aspect of it, but I would venture to guess a lot of people don't make new friends. Like once you get to a certain part in adulthood, you don't make new friends, or at least it's a lot rarer. And I don't think that's healthy. I think it's good to continue to make new friends. There you go. There's my thesis of the episode.
Your thesis. Interesting.
Yeah.
And I would say there's probably some people that the more extroverted amongst us who are probably constantly making new acquaintances and turning some of those acquaintances into friends.
Yeah.
But a lot of us are...
Sounds like a conversion mechanism. Conversion rates.
Yeah. My pipeline of friendship, like a sales pipeline or something.
But I think there's something that transitions from childhood to adulthood. A lot of my friends that I know have been friends for 20-something years. Like they grew up in school together. They went to the same college together. Their families became friends. They still vacation together to this day. And I think it's really hard for people that move or people that have friends that move and relationships that change to continue to invest in making new friendships. Yeah. So what's so hard about friendship?
I mean, at its base level, just like any relationship, you're risking something. It takes effort, understanding why we're doing it. Think about back to a kid. We're not doing the ROI of meeting a new person, right?
Yeah.
You're not even thinking about what's our shared goal. None of the stuff that as adults we oftentimes will. Maybe it's just my over analytical brain, but we're not thinking about those things. It's just you want a friend, and there's somebody there, so you try and be their friend. I think as adults, we kind of undervalue connection is one of the problems with it. So we don't see that it's worth it in a sense, just for the sake of having another deeper connection in our lives. And then there's a risk because anybody that you meet, you have a vulnerability with, or else you're not actually getting into much of a relationship. It stays extremely surface level.
Yeah, just become acquaintances.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. You do a lot more selection as an adult. Like, it's not just, hey, you're here, let's play with a toy together. It's, hey, do we enjoy having conversation together? Are we aligned in our goals? Do we have a good differing perspectives, but can also talk about similar perspectives? Do we have shared interests? All these things that become more and more difficult.
Yeah.
And I think there's transitionary periods in your life, like obviously elementary school, middle school, high school, college. I think people get married, people have kids, then you have to get along. You and your spouse have to get along with them and their spouse.
Yeah.
And then kids have to get along, and you have to have similar or differing perspectives, but still respect for parenting and all of that stuff together. That it's just really hard.
Yeah.
And your priority obviously becomes less friends and more family.
Yeah.
And it's,
to some extent too, that I think there's a stability that we long for too, because there's enough kind of chaos built into the systems you're talking about. There's enough turbulence, might be a better way of saying that, a kinder way of saying that. Enough turbulence built in. It's like, let me go find a new friend out there. I think there's enough going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, but there's so much value in friendship, like you talked about, for connection and community and differing perspectives and all of that. That I think of some people that have come into my life over the last couple of years that are now really good friends of mine. All of them have come in through either the work that I'm doing, so like this, like Derek's a new friend. Hi, Derek. Or people that work with the Human Project, or people that are part of our community, like our church community, have become friends. And I'm struggling to think, like, last time I have made a friend outside of those. Not that I've sought those out, but it's just really hard to make friends as adults, I feel like. So what I would like to talk about in this episode is how to do that. How do we make friends? And we've talked about a little bit of the value of friendship and value of connection and community, and I don't know if that's worth rehashing all of that here. How about you? How do you like to make friends?
I will agree with you, like finding shared stuff is probably the easiest way. And I think this is a way that you've talked about it before, I'm sure, from one of the many books or so on that you've read. But
you think I read books?
I've heard that. It could just be a nasty rumor. But face-to-face, head-on, so to speak, types of activities are a little more intimidating, require a lot more vulnerability. So that's not usually a starting spot in a relationship for me. I tend to find like being side by side, facing something together, whether that's, you could be like watching a movie, or that's not a very interactive thing, watching a sporting event maybe, or just doing something at the same time or with somebody else is an easier way to have a relationship. And I think this is one of the reasons why sitting down and eating together, like everybody's got to do it multiple times a day, right? And it can be very enjoyable to eat together. And it also unlocks something because we don't have to just be sitting there going, so what's the next thing I'm going to say? Or how am I going to respond to this or anything? There's kind of some, if you will, oil in the gears.
Yeah.
So I think doing things with, it sounds very simple, but it truly makes it easier to do something with other people is a tremendous way to do this.
Yeah, I like that analogy. It's lower vulnerability. You can test like how you guys work together. It almost sounds like you're like talking about dating, but I think a lot of the principles from dating apply to just friendship.
They do. Yeah.
And it's almost like God intended you to be married to a friend or something like that. I don't know.
It could be.
Yeah. But I think even beyond or before that, there's so much that I think we don't place an emphasis on with being friends as being friendly. Like, I think, what do the interactions that I have with other people on a day-to-day basis look like? am I healthy in those interactions?
Yeah.
Or do we not care about people? I think that is the danger stance that all of us have, is we treat every interaction as something that is just a transactional relationship. And obviously you're going to have lots of transactional relationships, but I think as believers, we are called into something deeper than that, beyond transactional relationships. Like driving through McDonald's drive-through because they have amazing breakfast.
Oh, okay.
But driving through a McDonald's drive-through, like you have 5 seconds to interact with somebody at the window. You can approach that a couple different ways. Mm-hmm. One is take the food, just drive away without saying anything. There's like, oh, thank you, have a great day, like really appreciate it, or something simple. Just something simple like that.
Yeah.
Extrapolate it out.
Right.
Like you have interactions with coworkers.
Yeah.
Not just only talking about the work that you're doing, but also talking about and getting to know each other personally.
Yeah.
That's how friendship can get developed, is building on top of those little micro interactions.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we don't place a lot of emphasis on, that I think has, like, that would be the first spot. If somebody's like, why can't I make friends? It's a great spot to check.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I think we don't recognize how valuable it is because we don't even realize when we're reading other people's cues of all those things you're just talking about there, but yet we're wired for it. Like that's how God made us. We recognize that our brains see the patterns, and we know when there's a deeper connection, a stronger connection being built there, we know it and we'll lean into it.
Yeah.
We don't know why. Yeah. And so therefore for us to recognize how we can exude that, oftentimes we don't realize what it is. I remember I have a professional coach that I work with, a good friend of mine, Frank. Hi, Frank. And and we were just doing some reflection. We had worked together at a client for a while, and we were doing some reflection. I was doing some, here's where I think I'm strong. Here's where I think I'm weak. One of the things I said is I think I'm pretty good at exuding, like being warm in first-time interactions. And he was very kind, but very clear with me. He said, I remember when I first met you at that client, I didn't look like warmth to me. You seemed pretty cold, honestly. And I'm glad I got to know you. You're a very warm person, but that's not what I got from you in the initial interactions. It gave me pause. Like, what am I exuding? And I go, yeah, I guess I can see it. It hurt to hear that feedback. And yet as I sat with it, I think he's probably right, because I probably have a analytical face because that's what's going on in my brain. And I was typically probably concerned about what it might imply for me. Oh no, how am I looking? It's all in my head. Like, I'm gonna connect with people, try harder kind of situation, which doesn't look warm at all. It doesn't invite in. So it got me thinking about, how do I exhibit warmth physically? And then what kinds of things do you say to somebody that you're exuding warmth to? And as we teach in our Human Project classes many times, there's some very simple things you can do physically. We won't go through all of them, but just for example, leaning in a little bit. Again, it's one of those things, like, it when it's happening to you. You just don't know that that's the thing, but it says, I want to be with you. I'm trying to be with you just a little bit. Just lean in a little bit. Eye contact is another big one. And they've proven over and over again that is a significant indicator of connection. So when someone walks in the room, if you look at them and you say, hi, Derek, and you look them right in the eye, there's connection there. Whereas if you don't look them in the eye, and even if you say the same thing, hi, Derek, and I'm looking down on the floor, is not nearly as warm, right? There's a lot going on in just some of the very basic physical things. Look people in the eye seems simple, but it's acknowledging that you see exactly them. You're looking right at them. Some of the, position of body types of things. And then curiosity, which is like my button. So if I pull that out, people usually receive that as warmth, as connection types of things. Noticing things is probably the pinnacle for me, because that's something that I work at. I'm not great at that necessarily, but when you notice something about somebody else, that lights them up typically.
Sure.
We were just checking out at a store, much like you're talking about McDonald's. We were just checking out at a store a couple days ago. And I noticed that the lady behind the counter, Christine, was picking up her new glasses, and she'd been extremely helpful to us in both of the times we had worked with her. And I noticed on her name tag, she had a little pin that was very clearly a D&D die, I should say. Sorry. I know how to pluralize this. Very clearly.
You've just upset all of our D&D listeners.
It was a D20. Okay. I know what I'm talking about. Barely. I barely know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I noticed it. And so to be able to notice that, and then she's wearing it for a reason, and just notice it to her verbally. I noticed you wearing a die there. What's the story going on there? And she just lit up because that's something she's passionate about, or she wouldn't be displaying it, obviously.
Yeah.
And we had a good, 10-minute conversation about her D&D adventures and our one D&D. Just like the connection was stronger just from noticing something and verbalizing it.
There's a couple of themes of what you talked about that I think are really important to call out. One is, body language. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So much that we communicate is communicated through body language.
Mm-hmm.
The other is noticing. In order to notice, you actually have to have time to have the conversation.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us jam-pack our schedules or feel this need to have busyness that we're not actually making time to be friendly. And that's crazy to me because if we want to build connection and want to build relationships, that's something that we need to do. Also, at the same time, there's, margin's a great word for it. At the same time, you don't want to under-index on or over-index on that. There's a healthy balance there. Under-indexing is not caring at all, just going about your day, just transactional. People are there to be used.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of us would say that, but a lot of us exhibit that. I exhibit that sometimes. The other is going way too far to the extreme. Hi, how are you? It's good to see you. And just shutting people out and who's that weirdo? There was a lady that was checking us out at Home Depot. Been working on my basement with a friend, and this was our third trip to Home Depot that day.
Only three.
You can't make
actually.
just one.
Yeah.
And she had checked us out before, and she's like, "Did you guys forget this again?" We're like, yes. And she's like, "Oh, well, that's okay. You guys have been here so much. Let me tell you about the Home Depot credit card and blah, blah, blah." Went into the pitch, and you could tell she was really enthusiastic about it and doing a job really well. And my first reaction was, this lady's a weirdo. And I don't think that was healthy. I don't think that was helpful. She was genuinely being kind, but it was so out of the ordinary from transactional, especially somebody that's a cashier.
Yeah.
I've been a cashier. I know it's the same repetitive thing over and over again. If you even get people off of their cell phones and all of that, it's
another customer who doesn't know what they want or whatever.
But you could tell she was 100% into it. And I'm I went back and I was kind of short because I was annoyed that we had to go back to Home Depot again.
Mm-hmm.
And so fourth time to Home Depot that day, I made sure that in the line when I came back, I went to her line and she did the same enthusiastic pitch and asked the same question oh, forget something else. I'm I just want to tell you, you're really energetic and I really enjoyed it. First, I didn't say this out loud. I'm at first it was weird, but I'm I just brought energy to my day.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that my approach with that, just casual interactions, how you approach casual interactions is how you approach a lot of interactions.
Yeah. You can almost use them. That's the way I've started using them is hey, so the lady that we were checking out with the eyeglasses, I might see her again, I might not, but it's kind of if I can't try that with her and make connection with her, how am I going to do that in situations like at church?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think
simple.
Right. The other danger that I think there is doing it insincerely.
Oh, big time.
Just trying to manipulate or things like that.
Right.
That is not helpful, not healthy.
Yeah.
Just asking questions you don't actually care about.
Mm-hmm.
I know you, I know your intent, and I guarantee you were actually curious about the dye that was on her pen.
That is the curiosity back there, yes.
Yeah.
Totally, yeah.
And I think I don't know, where do you think fake it till you make it comes into play here?
I think that's almost, I'm not a huge fan of the phrase, first of all, but I think that's, to me, I would interpret that best possible interpretation is fake it until you feel like you're making it. Because look, you want to be genuinely curious. So start the conversation, say whatever, exhibit the warmth. And then you have to be ready for what's coming back at you, which is ideally someone takes a step toward you. Okay. So go with it is kind of the thing. And as you're doing it, it'll start to feel more like you know what you're doing.
So that's, I think, first stages of friendship.
Right.
Imagine friends that you've been in contact with or acquaintances for a while.
Mm-hmm.
How do you build that friendship? And I have an option.
Yeah.
Like if your friendships are stagnant, you're not at the depth, you guys have drifted apart, etc. One is time. Just have time to talk. The other is ask questions. Become curious. Ask what's going on in their life. Forget about your own needs being met. Just focus on them. Talk to them. Hear what's going on. What's going on in your life. Asking questions. Come to our Creating Connections class or Deepening Connections class.
Right. Yeah.
That's 2 episodes in a row I've done a promo. But
Right,
seriously, like there's so many skills in that we've talked about in other episodes. You can check it out there as well. But how to build that and continue to deepen the conversations, going beyond, hey, how are you? What's Sally up to in school?
Right.
This kind of stuff. Like what's going on in your heart?
Yeah. I think one of the approaches that can invite deeper relationship that we often don't value highly is talking about emotions. It sounds like, sure, what's the big deal? And yet doing that can take the conversation to a different level.
Yeah.
Like to say, oh, yes, Sally's, man, she got called to the principal's office at school, was in a fight, whatever the case might be. Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that's a bummer. Wow.
Yeah.
Did she get in trouble? Did she get suspended? Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Well, at least she didn't get suspended. It could go that way. It could be
that's the normal human interaction is, oh, yeah, the same thing happened with Johnny last week. And then you're pulling direct attention back to yourself.
And you're all staying up at the circumstance level of things.
Bingo.
Yeah. So how can you keep it with that person instead of pulling it back to you and just invite, wow, that sounds like maybe it was challenging for you as a parent. And I'm not even using a strong emotion word there. I'm just recognizing there's something deeper possibly going on and being touched in that parent's life because of that situation. And that invites deeper. And the other person might not go for it. That's cool.
Right.
If they do,
I think
deeper.
that's your responsibility in showing up as a friend, is be a friend first, see what happens.
Yeah.
And then maybe it'll get reciprocated.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great example. Emotion. Dive into emotion. 2 dudes telling you to lean into emotion. Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah. So how to start just relationships in general, take it beyond the transactional to actually caring and deepen the relationships that you already have by using emotion. Great starting point.
Yeah.
Great starting point.
Definitely.
And leverage the community that you have. Side-to-side relationships. Focus on those. Nice. I think those are good, practical, high-level steps. Maybe in a future episode, we can dive into like tactical things or what does this look like on a day-to-day.
In the long term too.
Yeah.
In
it's
some
not
ways,
just I'm gonna get a new friend by next week.
Right. It's the accumulation of these things and the connection that they invite that creates those friendships that we're talking about.
Yeah. Like our friendship, we were coworkers for 5 years or so, 4 years or so.
Like that, yeah.
Then we started working really closely together at the same company.
Yeah.
And found similarities that we had in common. VeggieTales and 3-2-1 Penguins of all things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now the rest is history.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Cool. Thanks for exploring that, my friend.
Yeah. You too, my friend.
All right. Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning in today. Behind the mics, you've got myself, Chris Conlin, and Mark Wavle. And our lead editor is Derek Donley. We are a crowdfunded nonprofit. Most of what we do is free because of your generous support. Thank you for joining us in our mission to bring 1 million lives closer to fullness in God's design. To support us financially or to learn more, visit humanproject.us. We'll see you next episode.